We sometimes underestimate how big the United States of America is, both materially and numerically. It is the fourth largest country in the world by area and the third largest by total area. In terms of population, it is the third most populous country in the world after the two anomalies of China and India. Economically, it is the richest country in the world. It has the highest annual income. Its defense budget is by far the largest in the world and is larger than the next 9 countries with the largest defense budgets combined. They lead the world in education, health, technology, informatics, culture, art, and much more. This country is actually the United States of America, as the name suggests. It consists of 50 states and a federal district with Washington as the capital. These 50 states are like individual countries and form a political union with each other. Each state has its own administrative powers within its own borders and shares sovereignty with the federal government. Technically and legally, the states are not created regions of the United States of America, but rather regions that come together to form the United States. This is because the United States of America and its constituent states operate within a parallel system of sovereignty. Because sovereignty is shared between each state and the federal government, Americans are citizens of both the federal republic and the state in which they live. Of course, this state citizenship can be flexible depending on the change of residence, and Americans are free to move from one state to another. No government authorization or legal procedure is required to change states permanently or temporarily. When we look at the states, each of which is like a country, we see that they alone are at the top of the world in some areas. We will try to look at what would happen if the United States of America were to disintegrate and each state became a country in its own right. Of course, we are not talking about a structure that could disintegrate after a series of conflicts. Also, when there is a possibility of disintegration, some states could merge and secede, as in the American Civil War of the 1860s, or they could merge with neighboring countries, Mexico and Canada. We will not take these into account. We will assume that each state is independent in its own right, and we will look at how they stand in the world today. First, let's look at the population. The most populous state in the United States is California. Located on the West Coast, home to cities such as Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, and Silicon Valley, where some of the world's biggest technology companies are headquartered. With just over 39.5 million inhabitants, California is more populous than countries like Canada, Poland, Saudi Arabia, and Australia. If it were a country on its own today, it would rank 37th out of 235 recognized countries in the world. The second most populous state after California is the oil-rich state of Texas, with 29.5 million inhabitants. Florida, with 21.5 million inhabitants, ranks third, and New York, with 19.5 million inhabitants, ranks fourth. If we look at the least populous of the states, we find Wyoming, one of the least known states in the Midwest. With a population of 580,000, Wyoming would compete with the small European countries of Malta and Luxembourg in terms of population if it were a country on its own. After Wyoming, Vermont, with 645,000 inhabitants, is the second least populous state, and Alaska, with 732,000 inhabitants, is the third least populous state. These two states have less population than about 160 countries in the world. In terms of area, Alaska is the largest state in the United States of America. With an area of 1,723,000 square kilometers, if Alaska were a country on its own, it would be the 18th largest country in the world today, ranking between Libya and Iran in terms of area. With an area of 695,662 square kilometers, Texas would be the 40th largest country in the world today. In third place is California, with an area of 423,967 square kilometers. If California were a country on its own, it would be the 60th largest country in the world after Iraq. When we look at the smallest states, we see the state of Rhode Island with a surface area of 4,001 square kilometers. The state of Rhode Island, located in the northeast of the country, would rank 175th in terms of area if it were a country on its own. The second smallest state is Delaware, a favorite of yacht owners. Located on the east coast of the country, Delaware covers an area of 6,446 square kilometers. More important than the population and size of states is the economy. California, also known as the Golden State, were a country on its own, it would be the country with the fifth largest economy in the world today. According to experts, California, which alone has a larger economic income than countries such as the UK, France, Italy, and India, will soon overtake Germany and climb to fourth place. Texas follows California in terms of economic income. If Texas were a country on its own today, it would have the ninth largest economy in the world. Texas would surpass South Korea, Russia, Brazil, Australia, Spain, and many other countries. The state with the lowest economic income is Vermont. If Vermont were a country on its own today, it would be about 120th in the world in terms of income, between Libya and Latvia. Although Vermont has the lowest total income, the poorest state in per capita income is Mississippi. At the beginning of the video, I said that the defense budget of the United States of America is larger than the next 9 countries combined. In addition to the budget, the American Army is the third largest in the world, with 1,390,000 active personnel. But more important than that are the weapons, equipment, and vehicles. The U.S. has the best and most technological ones. Of course, it is not exactly possible to divide this military power among the states, because the Army is organized by the federal government. But we can get an idea by averaging the number of personnel and the taxes they pay to the federal government. 185,000 of the 1,390,000 personnel in the U.S. Army are Californians. In second place is Virginia with 125,000 personnel, and in third place is Texas with 115,000 personnel. When states become countries in their own right, some have to change their flags. For example, the flag of North Dakota is full of symbols that represent the United States of America, not the state. The eagle on it is the Great Seal of the United States of America. If North Dakota were a country on its own, it would have to change this flag to symbols and colors that represent itself. The flag of the state of Ohio is also full of symbols representing the United States of America. In contrast to North Dakota and Ohio, there are states that have flags that fully represent their local cultures. California, Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, New Jersey, and Maryland have flags that symbolize their own history and culture, not the culture of the United States. In this video, we examine the question of what would happen if the United States were to disintegrate and each state became a country. What are your opinions? Which country do you think would be the best country if each state was a country? I look forward to your comments. Don't forget to subscribe and like.